All
Yeah,
right.
things are a little slow today, aren't they? Okay, here we go.
Right. So, guys, here we are. Kurt Gronowski with Jason here again. We're slightly different schedule. Mondays are strange for
Mondays are
us.
strange.
And yep, so we're going to be touching on a bunch of things here. And
Yep, and welcome
so,
to Facebook Live here with me at Common Sense News Entertainment. Jason Douglas here once again, along with Court Rotnowski of Yankee T News. Another joint venture here on this day after Easter, Monday, April the 6th, and lots to talk about. So here we
and
go.
so all hail Connecticut Common Sense News and Entertainment. All hail.
That's right. That's right. Progress is being made behind the scenes, people. It
Yes.
really is.
I
So
believe it.
that's the
Okay,
first step
so
up here.
now
This
didn't you
is not.
just say you just said you wanted to talk about Iran, right?
I do want to talk about Iran right away.
Okay, well here we go.
First of all, the 2-day ultimatum Trump gave back on Saturday is now through 2 days old, and I guess we're gonna get another day.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I want to say that just on a situation right now, we're hearing a little bit talk lately about a deal supposedly with Iran that three countries, Pakistan for one, Egypt and Turkey for two and three, have come up with a 45-day ceasefire proposal, which is supposed to lead to a deal with the current. Here's the thing: it's a deal with the current administration of Iran.
Okay, well you
And Trump claims he's
understand.
talking to more reasonable people, but to me, I just want to say this and get it out there right now because any kind of a deal that's made that ends this war, that leaves the current administration in Iran, is one of the most colossal betrayals of the people of Iran I can ever imagine. They'll never trust us again, and we can forget all about Iran at that point. And we better just get ready for war
Okay,
because
yeah, you can
you
say
can't do that
that.
to the Iranian people.
Fine, you can say that, but I think President Trump and many others understand it's the same old story. You say ceasefire, I say rearm. Okay, you say ceasefire, I say reorganize.
Right. There's just lip service. That's very possible. That's probably what this is.
You say ceasefire, I say reconstitute and reorganize my forces.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think we understand it for what it really is.
Yeah,
But
Trump's covered his bases. Maybe I'm getting a little too. I'm just saying. I know I'm right about the no deal can be made with. At this point, the only deal is a new, more reasonable regime in Iran. No
yeah,
deal with the
well, all
mullahs.
right, fine. That's
Okay.
a perfectly good guiding principle. In the meantime, though, look forward, Jason, to some ironic justice.
Okay. Tell me more.
What has Pakistan been doing lately?
Well, they've been sending their people into Iran for starters, right?
That's one. But before that, what else did they do?
Tell us.
They lobbed some missiles into Iran,
Oh yes, we do remember that. That was what 3 weeks ago.
something like that,
About that. Hmm.
for attacking their partner, Saudi Arabia.
Oh, because they have a pact with Saudi Arabia. That's correct.
Correct. Okay.
A
And
little
so
mini NATO in the Middle East.
yeah, so we've had the issue here with Balochistan down here in the southeast corner, and there have been border disputes with Afghanistan as well. And there was that militia we talked about.
Okay, you keep talking. I'm going to step out for a minute because I got to turn my TV down. I'll be back in a minute. Keep
Okay,
talking.
all right, just standing by.
Keep
This
going.
is quite a show, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a show.
We are working on our cosmetics. Believe me.
Cosmetics.
Well, our. I mean, I got to start wearing better clothes. We're working on a studio eventually. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
We're getting there. But go
All
ahead.
right. All right. So the thing is, okay. So Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Turkey have worked together to put forth this 45-day ceasefire proposal.
Well, is it Afghanistan or is it Egypt?
Afghanistan.
I thought Egypt was one of the countries. No.
Well, maybe they would be too. Everybody wants to get their end in on this.
Okay, go ahead.
God forbid that there is some situation in the future where these people who were sitting down together trying to formulate a peace plan ended up going to war with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be the first time. Something to think about. In any event, I'm going to mention and get into a little bit more the next military unit on its way to the Mideast. Have you heard?
I have not. Tell me.
The 10th Mountain Division.
The 10th Mountain Division. Oh, interesting.
Right. So when we look at the map of Iran, what do we notice? Lots of mountains.
Especially in the west.
That's a good place to send a mountain division, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have some mountain division problems to solve, whatever they turn out to be.
Guess that's why they're the Mountain Division.
Oh, yeah. No, it goes back to World War II, at the 10th Mountain Division. So
It's a very mountainous nation. So
the other part is, and the Tehran also ends up being kind of in or near a mountainous region.
Tehran isn't Tehran itself in a more of a deserty region though, right? Flat. Tehran itself is flatland.
But close. But
close to the mountains, right?
Right. And from this so here's the Caspian Sea, and then you see that I don't know the name of it, that mountain range right there.
To the west,
below that, and then we move to a little more to the east. Somewhere around there is Tehran. Okay. Those look like pretty high mountains there.
Well, Tehran is more to the southeast of the Caspian Sea, though, right?
No, it's in this upper.
I can't point to it.
I mean, I would draw a line down the middle of the Caspian Sea,
like right there,
right, and then you can see it's 35 degrees here. There's a way to do this. There's a way to do this.
I would say right where your 55 east and 35 north meet. That's about where Tehran is, I think.
Oh, we're going to find out.
Okay. Maybe a little to the northwest, to the northeast of that, even a little bit. See 55 east, 35 north, where these two lines meet, right there. In that bright yellow area, that's where Tehran is, or it's close to that.
Oh, Tehran.
I'm the human map. That's what my old boss used to call me, the human map.
Okay, 35.751. So north.
Okay, north what?
So it's really close to the 35 north.
Okay, what about the longitude?
And then 51.
Oh, 51. That's further to the west than I thought.
Yeah, so right. I don't know if you
okay, it's mountainous there. It's probably right where the mountain.
You go to where 50 intersects 35, and then you just move a little bit to the east there, and that's going to be where Tehran is. Okay. So the thing about that is, I think from a strategic point of view, the leadership, if they had to, could hightail it into the mountains. Maybe they have already. We don't know, but the mountains are nearby.
Sure.
Okay. So that's
something. Killed most of the leadership. You're already talking about the second and third tier leadership here.
Right. Oh yeah. So who knows? And so the thing is, I can't. This is bugging me, so I got to bring it up.
Apparently, the United Arab Emirates are prepared to help us militarily.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll see. What is this I want to mention? Come on, Court. You can think of it.
Do with Tehran?
No. Saturday night, there were reports of these huge strikes in Tehran. There were videos of at least 3 huge strikes.
Putting a major bridge.
Well, no, not the bridge. This is
bridge.
Like certain sections of the city.
Okay.
There's a suggestion that those strikes took out a substantial number of the current top leadership in the IRGC.
Okay, good.
Okay, but it hasn't been confirmed.
Okay.
All right. So call it a rumor. And my sense, this is the problem I'm having, is my sense is that those strikes did in fact hit quite a number of these IRGC leaders.
Is the military saying that it did?
No, that's just it. And I don't think they'd want to admit it either. But
yeah.
Just, my gut reaction is that those hits were on the mark.
No, is our military though, CENTCOM, saying that we did this?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's a news report. So
Gotcha.
wherever the news agency got their information,
Gotcha.
you know. So that's the claim, and I think there's something to it. Now, all of this said, the problem is that the 10th Mountain Division is a light infantry division. You know, they're used to being agile. Yes, they work in difficult environments. So they're not going to be based upon using tanks and armored personnel carriers, and
They're not special forces.
they're not special forces. No, their training is to be able to deal with functioning in a mountainous terrain, as the name suggests.
Okay.
Now, let's review an extreme example of what would be considered mountainous terrain. The D-Day invasion, there was a group of Rangers. I think they were Rangers. There was 200 of them. Pont du Hoc, I think, is the name of the target, the objective.
Mm-hmm.
They had to scale a cliff. Okay, that was at least, I think, 150, 200 feet high. It was a big cliff. Well, that is the worst possible position to be in. On the bottom,
side,
having to climb to the top.
Yeah.
Well, they did it. They accomplished it. They were successful. They breached that cliff. They killed the Germans at the top, only to find that their objective was gone. There was a huge cannon there, and it had disappeared on a track, put back somewhere. Well, they managed to destroy some stuff, but the mere fact that they are able to do that should tell any strategist that there's no such thing as a defensible position. Because every defensible position, if they can do that, every defensible position can be breached.
Especially in modern warfare.
Well, I don't know if World War II would be considered modern warfare.
No, but especially, it's more so true today, even more so than it was then, probably.
Okay. So all that said, you look at these mountains in Iran, and think about that example, a historical example. Now you have the 10th Mountain Division having to do God knows what. All right. So, and it becomes a curious thing. We know there are tunnels. We know they have their hiding places. We know they still have missiles and launchers. And it's just, finding them apparently is still a problem. So it's what's coming, where previously we would have talked about taking out lots of launchers. Now it's more like onesies and twosies. And at the same time, the number of launches are down. The latest report for today has been, as of what would be 8 o'clock at night over there.
Mm-hmm.
The Iranians launched 23 missiles today. That's it, 23.
For the day?
For the day. Okay.
Yeah, that's down significantly.
Right. So that becomes a bit of a problem, you might say. Anyway, let's go on now. Okay, so we get the sense. How should I say this? The problem is, or the challenge is, victory. Okay, we're overcoming these bastards. Is going to be involved in dealing with these mountainous regions. All right. So the 10th Mountain Division becomes the obvious choice, but it's just one division.
Keep in mind when we're in a position in this war where we're chasing them through the mountains, I think we're in pretty good shape.
No, I would not assume that for a second.
What kind of position are you in to govern when you're hiding in the mountains?
See, this is the other question.
Survive in the mountains. Can you govern in the mountains? Probably not.
It's all about communication. Okay. There are all sorts of manners of communication, radio communication, ham radio, shortwave, walkie-talkie. There are these.
You communicate with whom? The people that are going to execute
each other,
rule over Iran and the rest of the country.
With each other.
Right, but if they're all in the mountains, they're not going to be able to do anything in the mountains. It's about us finding them and hunting them down. At this point, we're in great shape. Now, if you're suggesting they have ham radios and communication with others that can continue to execute their plan around Iran, around the world, or whatever, then those people that they're talking to are presumably not in the mountains, right? They're not in the mountains. They're out trying to do their bidding from the mountains.
Okay, it's
Those people
called
are therefore also vulnerable to our attacks.
it's called a supply network. Okay,
Mhm.
and it's called coordination. Right. So if they have intelligence that the 10th Mountain Division is in a certain valley near a certain mountain,
hmm
then they're going to
Avoid
coordinate
that.
their attacks accordingly. But to do that, they need to be able to communicate.
Of course.
So how they're communicating is an important issue.
Sure.
Anyway, so let's take this one down and let's put this one up. Okay.
Oh, well, you got that mastered now. You're rolling through that now.
Okay. So
Army,
military personnel. And so what's useful about this is it gives you a percent breakout. Now, the surprise here is I thought that the IRGC was at least bigger than the Army. Remember, the Army is Artesh, right?
Right. But is this based on what we think is going on now, or is this just pre-war statistics?
It's pre-war.
Okay.
All right. So they've been degraded, yes. And there have been defections, yes. But we have no idea to what extent. Now, what's missing from this, though, unfortunately, are the reservists. And, the reservists, I think, easily make up another 400,000 or 500,000. Also missing from here, because I guess they're not considered military, is Bashir.
And what do you think the loyalty of the reservists level would be against with their mullahs? I mean, probably not too great.
I would say, all right, I'm going with 85-15.
85 right? Pro regime, 15 pro American?
No,
or
85-regime.
No, 85 anti-regime, right.
85% fed up with the guys in charge. 15% are still true believers.
That are true believers, right? I would agree.
Okay.
So that helps.
So the question mark is still the Army. What is the story? Here it says there's 65% of the military personnel, and we haven't heard squat about them other than a few defections.
Mm-hmm. The Artesh Army you're talking about?
Yes.
Well, I mean, they're probably. To distinguish them too much from the IRGC, I don't know. They're probably whatever percentage of the IRGC that we think has been diminished. We could also apply to the. Do you think do they operate completely separately from one another?
That's the suggestion. I mean, historically, the Army was the Artesh Army here was under the Shah. All right. So when the mullahs took over, they didn't disband the Army. They still needed the Army. But the problem was that the Army was I don't want to say necessarily secular, but they were certainly not the same kind of religious extremists that the mullahs were.
Correct.
And because of that religious extremism, they distrusted the Army. Okay. And as a result, created their own army, the IRGC.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But they're this much smaller. I'm still trying to absorb this. It's a surprise.
But that's accurate. This looks like an opportunity. You could probably enjoy the same percentages of true believers among the Artesh Army, maybe, as we talked about with the reserves. I mean.
Okay, yeah, but they're organization. Who are they going to report?
They're an army. They're already organized.
No.
They're not.
You've got those who are going to stay loyal to the state and those who don't. Those who don't have to have their own form of organization in order to work together as a team. And if they defect, they don't. It's not axiomatic that when you defect, you have a team.
Okay, but
when you defect, you're alone.
But if you even have as many as 2/3 of the, you're suggesting 85%, even if we scale it back to 65% of the Artesh Army, that would assume that same mathematical equation would apply to their officers as well. Maybe not as high, but enough to create a stir even in the higher ranks of the Artesh Army to say, they must not like the IRGC. I mean, if you go back to pre-war days and all that, they probably don't like the IRGC to begin with. If I was let's say I was a lieutenant or a general in the United States Army, and the government decided to bring in another army because they didn't trust this army. I mean, that'd be offensive to me. I would imagine that
it's mutual mistrust.
Yeah. So I
Right.
think I see this as an opportunity, not a
Well,
problem, really.
okay, it may be an opportunity, but it hasn't translated yet.
Not that we know of.
All right, and it gets goofy. So let me just give you an example. Going back to the rescue, we could talk about the rescue a little bit.
A little bit.
How much have
I'm
you
glad it
heard
happened.
about it?
I'm glad it happened. Now it takes away any worries we have about bombing in the area. Let's start with. That's
Yeah.
that's what makes me happy, and of course, I'm very happy that he's home safe. I mean, geez,
Yeah.
But
Okay.
just in terms of war strategy, it's good that he's out of there. We don't have to worry about blowing up our own guy.
Okay. So the problem is we're getting two versions of how the civilians in Iran have reacted. Version one was that they were shooting at the plane and shot it down. That's version one. While it was refueling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but version two is that you had some of these civilians who helped the down pilot. They hid him from the IRGC.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In addition, the IRGC told the civilian population to go out and find the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one problem.
They offered a reward, I understand too.
What?
I understand the IRGC offered a reward for if you turned it for
Sure.
Iranian citizens to turn the pilot in.
Okay, so there's just one problem. The people were not interested in finding the pilot, but they took their instructions to go out and look seriously enough to create a huge roadblock in the area for IRGC.
That sounds great. I think that's good news.
Right. So
the one person that could tell us what really happened would be the pilot. So someday we'll hear him on,
yeah. Well, as we know,
Fox News with Hannity one night.
Amazon or Netflix are going to make a movie out of it.
Sure.
To be inevitably true. Okay. So you got to the role of the civilians in this becomes a little bit muddied, but this rescue effort showed that they may be more on our side than we realize. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's before all this other stuff is going to happen. Now, it's been offered that the IRGs, the mullahs, whenever they thought the population was getting out of control, would shut off the power and shut off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to come in and destroy those things, it's just another day in Iran, as far as they're concerned.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's.
Well, I mean, let's be fair though. I mean, if they're going to blow up the power grids, they're going to blow up those. That's not an everyday in Iran. If you're blowing up the, actually striking down their power grids and their facilities, their nuclear facilities, they're just for their regular power generating facilities.
Yeah, well, I think it stands to reason that much like we did in Europe after World War II, there was the Marshall Plan.
Mm-hmm. That's what I said. We rebuild it.
We'll have to, yes, we have to have a Marshall Plan for Iran.
Yep.
Okay, so how strong is Iran's military? All right, so this gives you a slightly different take, all right, because they've combined the IRGC and Artesh into one big number, 800,000. And like I said, they left out the reservists.
Okay.
But now we look at the equipment part, and this is the part that's got me a little confussed. Okay. So we'll start at the top. Main battle tanks, 1,783. We haven't seen or heard much about those battle tanks.
Okay.
That we've destroyed some number of them. I think we can say that. But in my mind, 1,783 is a pretty large number. And
sure.
It's a good chance we didn't get them all.
And of what use are those to the Iran, I mean, in a ground war, obviously they're useful to them, but that may not even be necessary. I don't see them as the most useful things for them at this point strategically, honestly.
Okay. In the worst of circumstances, you would have a group like the 10th Mountain Division that has no armor, light infantry. Okay.
Sure.
And they show up in an area where these tanks are able to show up.
In the mountains?
Not all mountains are mountainous.
Well, I get that. There are plateaus and things like that.
Right.
But just the same, I think that maybe a lot of these tanks will end up being of good use to the new, more benevolent Iranian government when this is over.
Well, that's a given. But so let me just use my overactive imagination.
Okay.
This has actually been done before, by the way. You can take one of those tanks
Put it on a plateau.
and use it as cannon,
Okay.
right? And so they would find places in the mountains to position them. And now you go into these areas and you're just discover that you're a little outclassed, you might
Those
say.
are a little difficult to pull out and put back in quickly. So I
Yeah.
think when we could probably zoom in on the source of those type of firings and go in
All
and
right.
get
Well, but then
so
there's
one
all right,
shot only for those kind
yeah.
of things.
Well, no, they would have more than one shot. The other version here is, and the Japanese did this in World War II, by the way. Again, there are lessons that the Iranians have learned, I'm sure. What the Japanese did was when they realized that they were not able to stop the overwhelming force that the Americans were presenting. Does that sound familiar? Overwhelming American force?
Sure.
Okay.
So
They
freedom
built caves, and the caves were interconnected. And they put blast doors inside these caves. Okay.
Mhm.
So what would happen is, if it was an artillery piece, they'd roll it to the front of the cave, fire away, bring it back in behind the blast-proof doors. The Americans would come along and throw in all kinds of crap, thinking they've destroyed it, move on, open up the blast-proof doors, come out again and take them by surprise, to take us by surprise.
Mhm.
Okay? So we know that they've had time to dig tunnels. They've studied Japanese tactics, I'm sure. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had similar setups in the mountains.
Sure.
As
Okay.
part of ongoing resistance. All right, so that's the main battle tanks, and then you got the
You have to break out a few more of those bunker buster bombs. That's all.
1,783
Okay, what's the next thing on the list? Infantry fighting vehicle.
fighting
though. We
vehicles.
talked about those.
Yeah, I'm not sure what an infantry fighting vehicle is. I guess it's going to be
Probably like a Jeep with a machine gun on it or something like that.
more. It's the next one is armored personnel carrier. So,
Well, that would
I
be
would
like
say-
the big trucks they carry the infantry in, right?
the armored personnel carriers are just that. They're big
Yeah.
they're buses. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're not armored, but they're not weaponized. So infantry fighting vehicles, they can carry 10, 12 men, and they probably have a small cannon on them.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. Then you have artillery, self-prepared and towed. That's a big number, 2,322.
Mm-hmm. Those would be the bigger cannons that would be like on a trailer behind a truck or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
and they would have to, it's the same challenge.
That's probably a lot of where their surface to air stuff comes from,
Right.
whatever they have left.
Now this next is the artillery rockets. This gets confusing, right? Because there are what would we say, mortars?
Would fall under
right?
ammunition, right?
Sorry?
Isn't that would just fall under ammunition? I would think.
Well, no. Artillery, I mean, yes, it's ammunition. It's the big ammunition. And to say that they have 1,474 rockets, that sounds a little low to me. I think they got a lot more than that. Plus, we've learned that they use cluster munitions.
Okay.
They've been using cluster munitions on Israel.
Is this another pre-war thing? Oh yeah, 2015.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's safe to say that with over 11,000 targets having been hit in Iran, that a lot of this stuff has been taken out.
Yeah, but it's a lot to take out, which should
It
be
is.
obvious.
No, I'm not suggesting it's all been taken out, but
Okay.
I bet you a significant amount of it has been.
Okay,
And then if you go down to the Air Force, fighter attack aircraft,
yeah, they're done.
our military is claiming they have no Air Force left. And I wouldn't suggest that means all 273 are gone, but probably I bet you at least 90% of those planes have been disabled. Or
Yeah,
destroyed.
well,
or maybe they're there, but they can't take off because the runways have been blown up,
or the pilots are gone.
or the pilots are gone. Transport aircraft. Okay, who cares about that?
Okay, so then 50 attack helicopters.
That's a finite number.
There were 13,000 raids. So these numbers are dramatically lower, ladies and gentlemen.
They are.
And I'll go out and they don't have the attack boats on this list either.
Patrol
Yeah.
craft, inshore and offshore patrol craft, that would be more directly related to what's going on in Hormuz, probably.
That's what you and I would think of as their Navy.
Yeah. Submarines.
And then submarines 20. I
They
would
got
say
5
there's,
Corvettes. All right.
there's
Oh, no,
still there
Corvettes.
still might be a few left. But
Got wrong.
again, so this is what gets weird, right? If we keep cutting from the top, cutting down the leadership, okay. So two things are happening. Those who constitute the leadership are younger, and the ability to coordinate what is still in existence gets worse. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So what that is left with is commanders in, let's say there's a guy who's controlling, like say 5 cave systems, and they've got a few weapon systems, and they can see the Strait of Hormuz. So he's got to make a decision on his own. There's nobody else he can talk to, and he's looking at what he's got, and there is no word I'm looking for. There's no strategic sense based upon any intelligence or battlefield information that tells him when he should fire them or where he should fire them.
Going on his own. I guess I would wonder.
Okay.
Would you think that the IRGC would probably be in control of the lion's share of what's left for their military equipment?
Who, say again?
The IRGC.
Oh,
This
IRGC.
doesn't break down who's controlling what in terms of the
Well,
IRGC.
According to one source, the IRGC gets all the good stuff. All right.
There you go.
Okay, but it's not clear when it's almost a 3-to-1 ratio of the Tesh Army figures to IRGC.
Right. So they're
That
getting
the
half.
IRGC would have that much more than the Army.
I'm sure the Army has plenty of equipment and military equipment, but it's probably, I bet you the ratios favor the IRGC though, probably,
Yeah.
like they're 1/3 of the Army, but they get half the stuff, something like that, more than half the stuff.
Right.
That would indicate that their Army is more of their light infantry, whereas their IRGC is their special forces, if you were to try to make a comparison.
Well, again, I go back to Bougier. I keep mispronouncing the name, but there's the thugs, the street thugs that they use, Bougier.
That would be like their internal police.
Yeah.
Essentially,
So
right?
there's them.
They're FBI, which is not our FBI.
I don't think they're on this list either. And that's at least another 300,000. So, and again, like my question is, where are they? Are they concentrated around Tehran? Are they distributed through the major cities? Are they out in the outback in smaller towns? Where are they?
Well, if I put myself in the shoes of the enemy in this case, I would want them scattered around the country in an effort to continue to do their job, which is to keep the people at bay.
Okay,
so that would, I would consider what I would do. I mean, unless our army is so depleted, we need to bring them into the actual fight.
Let me take that and go back to one key point that we have to keep in mind that happened with respect to the rescue. Since the Frig Wen, have we, in any rescue effort, gone out there and built an airstrip as part of the rescue plan?
Is that what we did?
Yes, that's what we did.
Oh, cool.
Oh, more than cool. Okay. And so here's the thing. I might as well throw in the other part here. We'll hear about it eventually. All right. Part 1. All war requires deceit, deception. You have to mislead the enemy.
Which is what that deal is all about.
Yeah, that too. Good point. So here, we already, because there was like this satellite transponder thing that the downed pilot had on his clothing, they had a pretty good idea about where he was. So what they did was they created a fake search effort about 10 or 15 miles away from where he was. Okay. And so they looked like they were looking in this area. They would draw the Iranians in. They were doing all this bombing. I mean, they were stirring the pot, baby, when it came to this diversionary effort.
And also making them think that they already had our guy when they didn't quite have him yet either. That was cool, I heard.
Yeah, so there was so much to drive the IRGC nuts, and drive them nuts we did. So then the next thing was, I'm trying to think. Okay, now the problem was that some of the rescue craft crashed. This was going to be a repeat of Jimmy Carter. This is just, oh my God. This almost went wrong. Almost went wrong. Okay.
Mhm.
Whoever was in charge made a gutsy call when he said, we're sending in more aircraft to get them.
Mhm.
And this required creating this airstrip. So, meantime, you got this diversionary effort going on. And while the diversionary effort is going on, we're building a friggin' airstrip in the middle of nowhere in Iran.
Little Iran, I love
God.
it.
Jeez.
I wonder if we secretly established a small little base of operation in there somewhere too, along the way.
Okay.
Use it as an opportunity to set up a little camp somewhere.
Okay, but there are other versions of this. Let me share with you the other versions. All right.
CNN
We're
version.
not leaving this rescue mission behind. But here are these other stories. At least these are stories I heard. I think they're true. Maybe they're not. Okay. Do you remember the story about how the Ukrainians bombed destroyed Russian strategic bombers?
Yes.
Okay.
I do remember that story.
All right. The backstory is that the drones that were used to do it were
Yes.
packed into a couple of trucks, Russian trucks, that Ukrainian operators were driving. Okay. They found a place to set up not too far from this base. And wait for the best part. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
They waited there for 9 months.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a lot of waiting.
That is a lot of waiting. So when the time was right, they released it. All right, so you gotta think about this for a second. Now let's go back to Iran. Gee, I wonder if the CIA or Mossad or somebody has been camping out in Iran for 9 months with some really cool weapons, waiting for the right moment. Just a thought.
Building a little coalition, and yeah.
Okay. And another version of this is another story, which I find remarkable. I'm still trying to take this in. True or false? We'll say we don't know, but the way the story goes is that for whatever reason, the Ukrainians decided that they had to send the North Koreans a message, since they had sent North Korean troops to fight them.
Right, that's why.
Okay, so once again, Ukrainian operators driving in what were disguised as Russian trucks. They had disassembled everything. So it was, if the truck was going to be inspected, it would look like it was a shipment of components going someplace. Jason.
Yes.
These guys drove into North Korea.
Really?
Yes. And they waited. I don't think it was a shorter period of time. I don't know how, but it was one of these weird things. Of course, they had done their intelligence, they had collected information, and they found that, as the story goes, so let's say here's the radar. I mean, however my hand can handle this in the screen. All right, so here's the radar station in North Korea. Let's say this is like a 5-mile scale here. Okay.
Okay.
So somewhere in that 5-mile scale, there was a little farmhouse in a small set of woods. It was perfect. That's where they set up shop.
Oh, wow.
So they assembled the drones and everything until the time was right, and then boom. And then amidst all the confusion, they pack up and they go home.
Wow. So they sent a message to North Korea by what, with some drone warnings?
Yeah, we can touch you too. Okay. But again, these are two examples of the enemy having set up shop in enemy territory for a very long period of time without being detected.
Like the Chinese were doing it here for such a long time.
Well, that's all right. Okay. I want to remind you, I did send you that video. Told you to check it out at the 15-minute mark. Don't remember. You probably didn't, right?
I haven't, but I will.
Okay.
That's a good idea if you spot a little section, because I don't have time to watch the whole video. So,
well, it's important.
Hey, check out this 5-minute span or whatever. I can do that.
It's important to understand everything in terms of context.
Of course.
Okay, so here's the thing. I mean, I'm digressing. Sorry, dear audience, I'm digressing.
We'll
The
forgive you this time.
the point I have made over and over again in all my broadcasts, we're not going to bitch about China, is that they have a parallel economy in the United States.
Hmm.
You have Chinese owned transportation companies, construction companies, hotels, accounting firms, real estate firms, okay, uh, doctors' offices. So, in any event, all right. So you can see how these are all can be integrated and work together. So in that video I sent you, all right, this guy knows a lot about China. He said, I cannot think of a single major industry that is not being in America that is not being influenced by the CCP. Not one. I said, thank you. I told you.
Not the private investigation, not my industry, but okay, yeah.
Oh, we could have that conversation.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure that there are private investigators that are compromised as well. Not me. I'm just saying, not me.
Yeah, not you. Okay.
No.
But
No, I know. Yeah.
Okay, and it gets complicated, and that too is an offline discussion. Yeah. Anyway, so the potential for doing similar kinds of things, and this, of course, brings me back to my other statement. This will be going on well after Election Day. Well after Election Day, even though these current strikes are giving us the impression that maybe this isn't going to last so long. No.
Well, it depends on it depends on how you define this. In terms of Operation Epic Fury, that'll be over before Election Day.
All right. Well,
in terms of getting Iran up on its feet, running as a proper country, that will drag on long past Election Day.
That's okay. Right. No, what we will have, I think,
getting rid of all the mullahs, that'll take long past.
I'll go for July. All right. I'll say that by July, we will have propped up the beginnings of a new regime in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Meantime, look for IEDs.
Mm-hmm.
Look for suicide bombers.
Similar to Iraq, what we had in Iraq.
Exactly. Okay. Look for ambushes. Look for surprise attacks anywhere this newly formed government is out and about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's always going to be the same thing. You could say that it's a pinprick. You can say that it's just a small thing, but it's going to make it very clear that the government is not totally in control.
Well, or that the government, I don't know if it'll be clear. I think we can establish where the new government is established as the new ruling government of Iran. However, as far as being in control, no, that will take a long time. But again, but even if this scenario plays out, which we think it will, past Election Day, whatnot, that we've now reduced the problem to it's now become a civil struggle within Iran now.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus is no longer on death to America, death to Americans, end of the Western world. It's now about they're trying to salvage what they can in their own country.
Survive.
It doesn't mean that we don't have to worry about sleeper cells and things like that over here. We do have to be concerned about that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we've shifted the narrative here. We've shifted the battle quite a bit in our favor, even if we do have to deal with this for months and maybe years after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't hear a lot about let me ask you this. When did these insurrections kind of slow down in Iraq? It took a few years, right?
When did the insurrection?
I mean, they still go on in Iraq right now.
Wait,
we're not hearing about a lot of insurrection or a lot of attacks anymore.
Wait, are you talking about Iraq or Iran?
Iraq. I'm talking about Iraq.
Slow down.
Iraq, after the Iraqi war, we had this situation like you're describing here in Iran with suicide bombers.
You're not going to like the answer. You're not going to like the answer.
It still goes on now, doesn't it?
Well, yes, there have been attacks on American facilities in Iraq over this, and yes, and they're dusting up. It's because you've got supporters for Iran who are in Iraq.
Yep.
And so they're going to do what they can to cause trouble.
Well, you probably even within the domestic situation within Iraq itself, you probably still have insurrectionists that don't like Americans present, don't like the influence the West has in the country, and they're probably joining up with Iran or whatever. So
Right.
my point is, this will never stop. We can't put a measurement on it in terms of our election, really, because we're not going to stop religious zealots from doing their thing before election day. Matter of fact, it'll never stop until they're dead, all dead, or whatever, you know. And I don't think so. I guess what I'm getting at is we should measure, if we're going to judge if you're going to vote this November and you want to judge it, the war is important to you, and you want to judge the president on that. We should judge it in terms of when Operation Epic Fury is over, not when when everybody in Iran is suddenly satisfied. We have this wonderful French Riviera going on in Iran, because that's not happening before Election Day.
Okay, well, I need to remind you that it was George W. Bush who did make the big mistake. What did he do when
Mission
he ran
accomplished?
What? Exactly.
Mission accomplished?
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a big mistake.
Okay.
So Trump should go on TV and say the military objective has been complete. However, the struggle continues in terms of, turning this country in favor of its people. That's the speech, Yeah, no, Mission Impossible was a mistake, no doubt about it. Or Mission Accomplished was a mistake.
Right. So
you got to watch what you say to the people, because the people's opinion is important. We are the ones that, in theory, should be running this government.
Right. And, there is another dimension here to this chart about Iran's military, and that is we have no accounting of their ability to repair damaged equipment and even make some new stuff. Because remember, it was Iranian Shahed drones that were being sold to Russia in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So they clearly have engineering capability for making military equipment.
Well, we also have a problem with, like you said, from both Afghanistan and Pakistan, that we're seeing a little bit of reinforcement coming in from those countries, right? So hopefully our military is on top of that.
No,
they're not.
Anyway, that's not a military problem. That becomes a political problem.
You mean when Afghanistan and Pakistan are smuggling military equipment into Iran, our enemies, that is a military problem. It's a political and a military problem.
That might be, but the other part, when we talk about supporters, like we were talking about the other day, all those people, all those RIGC supporters who drove in from Pakistan and Afghanistan, drove all the way to Tehran to wave the flag and say, "Here we are to support you."
Yeah, they know they know Trump is putting the hell of fire into them, and they're trying to mobilize. They know they got to work. They got to mobilize to try to fight us off. So that makes sense that they're doing that, actually.
Yeah, well, I don't know. On this, I think we know that the people who are in the middle of this fight, the quote military planners, know better than we do.
Sure.
About the situation on the ground. And I think they have a better sense than you and I will ever have, of course, when it will make sense for the civilians to really start to speak out and get out in the street. Ain't now, ain't next week, or the week after that. For what it was worth, this latest guy who was bumped off was the
head of intelligence, right?
Sorry?
Head of intelligence?
Yeah, the very guy who is responsible for all the thugs in the street.
That's great. One thing we can't do is we cannot make a deal. Not at this point. No deal.
No deal.
No deal with the mullahs, no. Even if they sue for it, no deal. Because we can't trust them. We can't negotiate with them. Their ideology is to kill us. So any deal that involves the mullahs in charge of we can make a deal with a new government, not with this.
Okay, well, that said, you remember there was the part where President Trump talked about how back in January they were shipping arms to the Kurds, and they were supposed to take those arms and give them to the Iranians who wanted to be resistance fighters.
We don't really know if that's happened or not, do we?
The Kurds kept the arms for themselves, supposedly. No, we trusted you. Okay.
That's the kind of thing that's kind of hard to know what's really going on now, unless we have our own intelligence, really, There's a lot of guesswork in covering a war, I guess.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
So I would argue this is the most major one we've had now at this point, even though it's short-lived so far. It's probably the most influential and significant one we've had since World War II.
Yeah. Oh well, on that I would agree. But I mean, you say this, and we've only been in this conflict for a month.
Yeah, I know. But the
month-long
nature of
conflict
because
is
of
now the most
technology,
significant thing since World War II.
because of technology and advancements in transportation, communication, and weaponry, wars like this aren't going to last 4 or 5 years anymore. Though there's just too much. It's too easy to destroy everything too quickly. Is what it comes down to. You know, that's why. What could you even do for 5 years in the Gulf of Hormuz?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
going to resolve itself. The military part will resolve itself.
all
And I
of
hope
that.
people understand when they go to the polls,
Yeah.
no matter what happens in November, that we're the good guys here. You know, we're the good guys here. The moral compass isn't even close.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, our media is our biggest. That's where the media hurts us the most. They try to level the moral compass between ourselves and them.
Oh, well, great! And in so doing, they appeal to appeal to people who can't think for themselves.
That's correct. And that's where the people who are smart and not mentally ill that use the mental health crisis we have in this country to foment a resistance to Donald Trump and to our government and what we're trying to do is that's where the crux of the problem lies. That's where guys like Chris Murphy here in Connecticut are so, I'm going to say it, evil. The guy's evil.
Mm-hmm.
He sure looks like a good-looking young guy that you can trust. That's what makes him the most dangerous.
That's correct. But we also know that I've said this before, he has been affiliated. He's communist adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's good buddies with Democrat Socialists of America.
No question.
And there was this one person who I had come across who's worked on his staff who was a card-carrying communist.
You know, the Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, that we talk about this guy Mondami, but Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, also a card-carrying. She's been in communist organizations. She's absolutely a devout communist.
Been to Cuba many times.
Been to Cuba many times,
Remember
including a trip
Revolutionary
overseas.
Brigade.
She was also in a communist nation when at some point while those fires were raging in California.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a real internal problem here. Once we saw that it's bigger than the problem in Iran, honestly, both of them go together. They really kind of go together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what I'm trying to work up to, though, is, well, two things. I said it before, say it again. For regime change in Iran will pretty much end whatever geopolitical strategies Russia and China have had for the region.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Yep. Well, force them to go back to the old drawing board, as they say.
Yes. Well, what would that look like for them?
Well, they won't be happy about it, and they'll probably, but luckily,
worth speculating on later.
Well, because of our freedom and the strength that we have, luckily for us, there's not much they can do, really.
Yeah.
So,
one of the downsides of this, all this stuff, or depending on how you want to look at it, is that when we are studying opposing militaries, there's an incredible amount of valuable information to be obtained by seeing how your opponent handles conflict.
mm-hmm.
So on the one hand, the Chinese are upset because we destroyed a lot of their equipment that they sold to Iran. But on the other hand, they're learning a lot about how we deal with this stuff, which tells them what they're going to have to do in their next design phase as they try to improve their equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we're playing our hand a little bit with the Russians
sorry?
and the Chinese.
Say again?
We're playing our hand a little bit with them.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Every time you make a move, it's,
Sure.
It's just like with, so weird, but you would have, I don't know if it was true for Artemis. There would have been suspicious looking vessels off the shore in international waters near the launch pad for Artemis 2.
Mm-hmm.
And those mysterious looking ships, giving all the appearance of being nothing more than oceanographic vessels, which they're not, would be sucking up every piece of information that they can get from all the telemetry that was going on, the communications they were able to pick up, and then tracking what was happening during the boost phase and on up in orbit, and to continue to track what they can, all in order to understand how we're doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we got a few minutes left. On a
Yeah.
lighter note, can we shift gears a little bit and talk about tonight, UConn men's basketball team
Yes. So let's see.
playing against
where-
Michigan?
Okay. So what's your scouting report on Michigan?
It's gonna be a tough game.
Yeah.
Michigan is. Look, if I had to bet, I don't want to. I'm not even gonna say it.
Yeah.
If I had to gun to my head and I had to bet one way or the other, let me put it this way: I would never predict against my team. I'm picking UConn to win.
Okay.
That's it. I pick with my heart here. But if I had to put a spread on the game, if I was like a gambling man, which I'm not, but if I was a gambling man, I'd put Michigan at like a -5.
Say
They're
again.
very, very talented and very, 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 very good. They're good like UConn, and they've been pasting. And they have lost a couple games this year, so they're not invincible. UConn can win, and I believe they will. But this will be the hardest one.
Mm-hmm.
Harder than Illinois, definitely harder than harder than Duke even. Michigan is probably the most talented and the toughest team in the nation right now. So if we win, it'll be an upset. I think they will.
My sense is that they're probably an explosive team.
Michigan is an explosive team, and the thing about it is, and they can shoot the three ball. Like they can shoot the three ball like nobody's business, and that's what makes them dangerous because they're tough on the inside and they can just kick it out and shoot that 3-point shot. And they pretty consistent with sinking those things.
Brother.
If that's probably our best chance to win if they just get a little cold from the field. If they keep shooting threes the way they have been, it'll be very, very difficult to beat. Doesn't mean we can't do it.
This is not good.
What's not good?
Poly markets.
Huh?
Poly markets.
What do you mean poly markets?
You never heard of poly markets?
What about them?
They have the Wolverines at a 74% chance of winning.
Oh yeah, okay, I know what you mean. Yeah. I think that's a little skewed, but I can understand. I would put it at 59, not 74. But you know what? I think UConn is going to win the game. I really do. I'm predicting it right now.
All right. Well, this is going to be a test of the champion to see who's got the bigger heart for winning.
And another thing, on a closing note, I had a conversation recently with a major candidate for governor here in Connecticut, Betsy McCoy. We're going to have her on the show, the one with Selena and I, Common Sense News in Connecticut Common Sense. I'm sorry, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She'll be on the show. I think this Thursday. We're working out the schedule. Once it happens, I'll put it out there so everybody knows and can not miss that. It's going to be a very good conversation.
Right. So, on the one hand, it's going to be her probably taking another opportunity to repeat her same points about taxes, right?
Zoning and whatnot. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're gonna ask her questions too, so she'll be.
Yeah. No, I think you should be. How should I say this? Tough but gentle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
like everyone. Same thing. I treat Aaron or her the same, no matter what. Although I think Aaron's a phony, but I'll still treat her the same. I'll let her say what she's got to say, and if she's got good things, then great.
Right.
A lot of people that believe in her though in the state. A lot of people. She'll be popular with grassroots people, especially in the Central Connecticut. So.
Aaron,
yeah. Got a lot of fans in the New Britain area. A lot of MAGA fans too.
I find that amazing.
I find it amazing as well, but it's true. I was at the Cadillac Ranch when they talked about her there, so I know she's very popular with MAGA people in Central Connecticut anyway.
All right. Well.
All right.
Well, so much time.
With that, are you ready to check out for today?
We'll bag it. Okay.
We'll bag it. We're gonna bag it. Thanks to you once again for joining us here on Common Sense News and Entertainment. For those of you that stick with us from the beginning, watch us grow and kick ass, man. Believe it. And of course, we have Corey with Yankee News. And once again,
right. And to my adoring audience around the globe, thank you very much. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
And for those